Everybody, this is Jeff Trammell. He is the showrunner for Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and we're going to ask him a few questions today. Very exciting. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Everybody always has kind of their personal story with Spider-Man and like how they were connected with it, either from growing up or, you know, during their life finding a way to connect with Spider-Man in a way. And I was interested in like where your Spider-Man story starts before any of the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man stuff came along.
Very young. I would have been in maybe 4 or 5 when I started watching Spider-Man the animated series. So very early on, that was my introduction to Spidey. That was kind of how I fell in love with that character, and Venom and Black Cat and all the characters, Morbius, all the characters within that world. And then, you know, as I grew up, seeing like the Tobey Maguire films, watching various shows and games, and then eventually moving to the comics and really finding an appreciation for the character.
Do you have a favorite one at all that you were like prone to, like drawn to a lot?
I mean, I always go back to the 90s series for a lot, you know, just because that's where I started. Also, Spectacular Spider-Man, I love.
Great
so
one.
That's one that I was like, okay, I had to buy it on DVD, then I bought it on Blu-ray. Yeah, so, yeah.
Digital copies, hand copies, all the copies. You kind of answered this question a little bit, but what was your favorite animated Spider-Man show growing up, and how did that influence your writing in terms of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man?
I'll talk about Spectacular a lot. That's a series that I think just does a phenomenal job of like setting up long-term storytelling with a lot of the villains. Like, I know the first time you meet certain characters, you meet them very early on, and you know, they might just kind of be like henchmen. Then they go and they grow and they get powers and certain things of that nature. So like that was a big thing for me. I really wanted to build, like kind of slow build our world. I don't want to like start the episode, boom, there's the Vulture right off the bat. You know, I want to like go on that journey with them. So a lot of characters really get that time to grow, and I'm excited for people to really spend time with them even before they, you know, become a major threat to Spider-Man.
Yeah, and like they're kind of like origin stories is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So exciting. I'm so excited to see like the new twists on everybody that you have.
There's a lot.
I actually have a couple questions about that, because there's a lot of like classic characters that you have, like Norman Osborn and the Osborns are back, but there's also some characters that we've seen that are newer to Marvel Studios projects but still known in like the comics universe. And I was wondering if there was anything that you could tell us about that, or maybe like little sneak peeks that you could let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I assume you're talking about like Nico Minoru.
Yes.
Yes. So like, I'm a huge fan of Nico. I love the Runaways, and being able to kind of build a world where our Spider-Man has a different set of just acquaintances and friends meant that we could kind of borrow different characters from different things in Marvel's vast comic universe. So, you know, once we were trying to figure out like, okay, who fits here? Who's a good friend for Peter? Who's a good foil for Peter? And so on and so forth. It was like, oh, well, you know, I really love Nico. I think she kind of exhibits what we need to. She inhabits what we need for this character. And just like being able to pull her over to the show, and just a really new, fun dynamic. Like, we've never had Peter and Nico, you know, at this stage of both of their kind of incarnations, getting to hang out, as well as like a character like Pearl Pongan, who's like is Wave in the comics. The fact that that's a newer character, and being able to like pull her into this show, introduce her to a brand new world of fans, and hopefully like that pushes them to go check out, you know, Pearl's comics appearances, Nico's, Jean Foucault's, and Avengers Academy. Like, just to me, being a fan of all of those, I really wanted to kind of put them on the big stage, do them justice, and hopefully open them up to a wide new audience.
It's definitely been working on me, because I was doing some research on Nico and everybody, because like I didn't know a lot about Nico Minoru's character, so I'm very excited to see like your take on it, and then similarly to what you were saying, like going back and like reading the comics on it and stuff. Are there any comics in particular that you would recommend to viewers of like in preparation to watch the show, or like while you're watching the show, that that you took inspiration from to like create Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man?
Oh man, I mean, in terms of like character, you know, I could list a billion Spider-Man comics. I don't know that it would be that fun for anyone. Big fan of Tom Taylor's run of Spider-Man. Big fan of Christos Gage, of course, who I mentioned. Christos also did Avengers Academy, which features Jean. Runaways, of course, you know, with Nico. There's a lot. But the other thing about the show is, like, while we are kind of borrowing from so many different incarnations and versions of the characters, we also wanted to make something that felt fresh. I didn't want to be like, oh, well, I've read this issue, so I kind of know where this story is going. So while we are doing a lot of, you know, referencing and pulling from and homages too, it's still an entirely fresh, new, fun story.
Yeah, I really like, even just from the sneak peeks that we've gotten so far, like how you guys have really, especially with the art style too, like tried to reflect like the 60s Ditko art style, while still making it look new, like you're saying, and like it looks so cool because it's like comic based what you're trying to do, but it still kind of has that new like 3D element to it and like an art style that we've never really seen before, which is like so neat. In one of the teaser clips we saw Daredevil, who is voiced by Charlie Cox. Very exciting. Was there anything that you could tell us about that besides the little clip that we got, or should we leave it to the show to kind of spell it out for us?
I want to give you something.
You're like something little.
I think what's fun about this Daredevil in our show is that he has been operating for a while. And the fact that, like, we're going to have at least, you know, MCU adjacent the first meeting of Daredevil and Spider-Man, I think is really interesting. The fact that this is a seasoned veteran Daredevil who's meeting a very early in his career Spider-Man, I think is really fun. And, yeah, I want to say more, but I'll leave it for now.
The show was originally announced to be Spider-Man Freshman Year, and now it is called Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. And I was wondering what in the writing process kind of changed the title, or if there was anything in particular that had you guys like change like the direction of the show at all?
I would say that the show is kind of called Spider-Man Freshman Year even before we had a firm grasp on what the show was. It was kind of like, this is the working title, this is how we're going, this is kind of the conceit. And as we worked to figure it out, we were like, okay, certain things kind of make it so we have to go down this road, or we have to go down that road, and we want to have a lot more flexibility in terms of the story we can tell. So once we were able to kind of like shift the direction quite a bit, you know, the show is still at the same title, but fundamentally it become a very different show than when we set out. And it become more about Peter's world and his community, and it is so intrinsically like he's a street level hero. This is him down and dirty in, you know, New York, and not like a huge adventure, not a huge cosmic adventure, I should say. So, you know, as we kept moving forward, it was kind of like, okay, we need something that really does fit the theme of the show. And at the end of the day, Peter is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in every sense of the word, and it's about him and the neighborhood. So Nico and, you know, Harry and everyone around him as well.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm very excited to see, like, especially I think a lot of people have been craving that like street level style of Spider-Man, so I'm very excited to see more street level Spidey. It's gonna be awesome. I know in the Spider-Verse films there was something called canon events, and those are like the events that make Peter Spider-Man, like being bit by the spider and Uncle Ben dying, and I was wondering like what canon events you guys kept, or that you really wanted to like keep solidified in this Peter story, and how that influenced your writing in terms of like adding new characters and their involvement in Peter's canon events per se.
That is a very good question. I will say that, like, you know, of course there is he's got to get bit by a spider, so that of course happened. But also just like, I know there's the canon event kind of talk of like Uncle Ben and where he weighs in for Peter. And I will say that when the show starts, you will quickly learn kind of what Uncle Ben's, where his place is in the show and kind of in Peter's life throughout the series. Like, to me, it was very important that like Uncle Ben's presence be felt as like a constant for Peter, not just like, here's this one line that he said to me on the day that he died, but here are all these lessons he instilled in me from, you know, all of our time together. So there's quite a few moments and mentions and nods to Ben. So I like to think that we really capture the spirit of the character and what he means to Peter, even more than if we had just kind of like had him in our first episode and let that be a moment and then moved on.
I love that. I think especially because Ben is such an important part of Peter's character development, and like his death and like the memories that he instilled in Peter, and like trying to always, grow as a person based off of like what Ben has told him.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's gonna be really awesome to see, and I'm excited that you kept that element throughout the show. It's very cool. I was at D23 during the Marvel Animation panel, and I got to see the opening title card and like the new theme song for Spider-Man that you guys wrote and everything. Were you involved with the writing of the song or anything, or like how you wanted to map out the style of the front animation for that at all, and how did that go about for you?
I wasn't involved in the song. That was, honestly, that came down from Mr. Feige, which I think was a great call. I didn't know if he could even get that song, let alone like get it and remix it. But I love how it turned out, so that's been awesome. In terms of like our opening titles, as it were, like we were really trying to make something that felt special, and again, like encapsulates everything we're going for, which is the history, the comic look, like the fun spin on a classic. And one of our storyboard artists, Stephen Walker, actually took a first pass at boarding out that opening title, and so much of what he did was so incredible that we were like, let's go with this. So myself and Mel Zwire, our supervising director, just went straight forward, and we're like, this is awesome. So we just kept moving along and plussing it, and that's how we got where we ended. And I think it's super awesome. So again, kudos to Steve for just going for it with that.
It came out so good. Like I was sitting in the audience, I was like, wow, this is gonna be so cool.
I'm excited for people to see it. It's one of my favorite parts of the show, honestly. I don't think anyone's going to skip it ever. So
will it be on Spotify is my question.
I think it's on Spotify.
It's going to hit my Spotify Wrapped. I wanted to end by asking, there's 10 episodes of the show. Which one was your favorite, and what are you most excited for people to see?
I can't believe you're making me pick between my 10 children. They're all really... It's tough because each one, like, honestly, does mean like so much to me for different reasons. If I have to pick a favorite, I think it's. I'm like, this is the toughest question. I mean, honestly, I think I would go with number 7. I think episode 7, Scorpion Rising, is one of my favorites because. I think it really tells you a lot about what we're willing to do and where we're willing to go to tell these stories. So for me, that's probably my favorite if I really had to pick one.
All right, everyone, episode 7. Remember that. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for hanging out and answering some questions for everybody. And be sure to watch Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, now streaming on Disney+.